Welcome to the Boise State Esports Arena. Tonight, Boise State gears up for a PEC non-conference match against the UNLV Rebels. I'm your host, Jacob Palmer, and I am more than excited to bring you this match because if there are any two teams that have a more storied history with each other in Overwatch, it is these two teams in collegiate esports. I'm joined by my co-host, AJ Pepley, to call all of the action with you. And AJ, why don't you go just a little bit more in depth as to the specific history these two teams have had?
Something that makes these two teams actually really interesting is they've had a very long history of beef. In our very, very first Mountain West match, it was Boise State up against UNLV, and ever since then there has been a huge rivalry between the two of them. UNLV was actually able to take the first three tournaments, but ever since then Boise State has taken that for themselves. So it's just been a constant back and forth clashing between them. Friendly rivalry, nothing to be worried about, but it's super exciting because we can see that rivalry continue here tonight.
Talking about a blast from the past, actually, we have had a recent Boise State player, graduated player, just enter, Joey Goblin. Yeah. Joey Pacey just entered the arena, getting a warm welcome from some of his former teammates, and hopefully they can put on a good performance for him and his guests here tonight as they're ready to go up against the rival, which certainly he has played against a lot during his time. UNLV here in the PEC. Before we get into the match, however, there is a little bit of housekeeping to do in the form of Doc's keys to the games in Overwatch. And the one thing Doc always hammers in on the keys to the game for Overwatch is never to take a fair fight. That means to take fights in unexpected places when your opponents are unprepared, and of course try to leverage as much tempo as you can. Brought to you by Boise State Esports. Those are Doc's keys to the game in Overwatch.
Now these keys mean a lot because while it might not seem like it when you're just watching it, these players are always focusing very hard on multiple different specific strategies and other plans of action that they have, and those three keys really play into those very well. You can see that especially with taking unfair fights, keeping them going at it when they're unexpected. Those two kind of go hand in hand because it's just if you can catch the team off guard and make sure that you're gonna win this fight, that's crucial. And so we've been seeing that a lot from our team here. We see a very similar strategy, very similar composition every time.
And here's the lineup that we have. We've got Amanda Bainey, Callan Miller, Garrett Strickler, Carter Jones, Will Hess, and Jenny Cummings ready to fight up on stage for you. All these players are raring to go and well fed as well because Doc just brought them a huge platter of Big Macs a little bit earlier tonight. I know we're having our Halloween party on Thursday, but I am thoroughly scared for the season because I heard the term Big Mac salad tonight. Nothing's going to top the horror of hearing that.
I'm going to pretend like I didn't hear that because I think that's scarier than anything else I could imagine.
Yeah.
But fortunately, more than being fed, they are staying hydrated. We had seen them drinking lots of water before we start. And making sure you're hydrated is very important, especially with all the call-outs you got to be making. They're constantly yelling at each other.
No other game is going to tax your voice more than Overwatch. So, looks like we are ready to start out and jump in typical best-of-5 Overwatch match. And if my memory serves me correctly, or if the little keys we were getting beforehand, before the game or anything to go by, we're going to be starting out on Control as the first stage. More likely than not, I believe we were seeing Busan Busan being floated as the first stage.
We had a little bit of a peek into the future, and usually it is typical to see, not Busan, excuse me, Control up first. But Busan will be exciting to see because we don't see it all the time. But it seems, unfortunately,
Lijiang Tower, we've been duped. Okay, but hey, I'm fine with this too because Lijiang's always a very fun stage to start out on.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that make it different from the others, especially all of that open air. You don't always see that in other maps. And what you do see in a lot of other maps is all of those places that enemies can get knocked off of the map. It's something that's very important to be thinking about every single time, just that control and the crowd control more specifically.
Yep, certainly depends on what stage that you're saddled with to start things out, but definitely on Night Market and Gardens especially, those environmentals can take you off guard as we are ready to jump into this match. Boise State Broncos versus UNLV Rebels in tonight's PEC Overwatch match. Starting out on Lijiang Tower, which is a stage that Boise State has been very, very successful in the past. Plenty of wins to speak of on here as we get an overview of all the possible stages we might see. And Gardens is going to be the first stage, very thematically set up for Halloween, which I like.
Even if Boise State doesn't end up taking a win like we were just bringing up, I imagine they will put up a real good fight for UNLV. Our team is very, very experienced, and they are not a force to be reckoned with.
And they can at least fight in style with all the atmospheric decorations right here.
We love the Halloween season, but we're getting close to it being a close. We got to take in as much of it as we possibly can before we move on to November. And then, well, frankly, I imagine it's going to be a lot of Christmas, even in the midst of Thanksgiving going on.
Mariah is on the horizon.
Oh no!
Don't even get all of us
started.
At the end of the week, this Friday, look out. All right, now that I've thoroughly terrified everyone in the spirit of the Halloween season, let's get down to brass tacks and see the actual game. As Strider is going to be brought out onto the Mauga. We've seen him a lot on the Wrecking Ball, but this is the first time I've seen him be brought out on the Mauga. We're going to have a double Mauga fight between him and UNLV. Maywall goes up trying to block off the rest of UNLV. Diamond Dog picking up the first pick onto QWERTY Tumor, and then shortly after that, Boise State makes a good bit of ground for themselves, taking out one of the main sources of DPS for UNLV, Omniflarp, and will be able to slowly rotate onto the point to capture it first.
Seeing Strider on Mauga is very interesting because, like you said, we see him on Wrecking Ball a lot. We've also seen him on Orisa, but I frankly have not seen him playing Mauga before, but it doesn't seem like that's going to stop him from doing his job fantastically. He's been able to keep this entire team alive so far.
Grenade has been heading onto Boise State, and we also see this Bastion trying to do his best. Charge in from QWERTY Tumor. Diamond Dog is hurting a bit for health, as long with Strider just barely hanging on in there. And the Frost comes in as the savior to take out QWERTY Tumor and Kernmaster and force UNLV to retreat again.
We saw Boise State getting lowered very low on their health bars, but able to stay alive due to Hex and Lyric being able to get the heals out there constantly. UNLV is putting up a good fight, but Boise State is just doing a better job at keeping him off the point, holding this bridge as much as they possibly can, and we have yet to see UNLV going around the other side to flank.
Yeah, they've taken the same route every single time, which opens them up. Oh, they were waiting for Hertz to be ready on the barrage, and it is able to take out Strider. Without their tank, we'll see if Boise State can hold this. They've spent their two support ultimates, Kitsune Rush and Orbital Ray. The Orbital Ray helps them take out Omniflark and Manchua, but is it enough? UNLV has taken the point from behind Boise State's front line, and the Broncos will have to have their first full-fledged reset.
Seems the moment I brought up the fact that they're sticking with the same spot, they immediately had a complete change in what they were doing. That combination of ultimates just really did not work well in Boise State's favor. They're still at 61%, so they're much farther forward, and they are about to be at a similar ultimate status here. So they still have a very good chance at getting back and recapturing that control point.
Well, they certainly got a great ultimate combo coming up. The Blizzard and the Death Blossom could spell some very fun things to come. Or we also got a cage fight that just came online for the Broncos as they wait to see how they are going to try to retake this. Diamond Dog gets hit just a bit with a nice headshot. QWERTY Tumor brings out the cage fight in combination with the artillery. That is a very deadly combination for the Rebels. They're going to nano boost the Mauga on top of that, as if this wasn't enough of a one fight. And Boise State is sent back to start yet again.
We were mentioning just before how we had two different ultimates that would work in tandem with that Death Blossom, but both of them got brought out without that Death Blossom being dropped. A very interesting turn of events, but I imagine that Frost did have, probably had a good idea in mind of that. It shouldn't be brought out.
Well, UNLV spent everything they have. They're going to have the barrage coming online this fight, but Boise State, if they use this Death Blossom first, could have a decisive advantage to start out the fight. So they are ready to move back onto the point, although Hertz is positioning himself in mid-air for an ambush, and a stun followed by the barrage is not enough. Boise State, Strider comes to the rescue with the double on the Flarp, soon to follow thanks to Diamond Dog on the May. Boise State chasing the Rebels off the point, now trying to get a stagger onto their remaining supports. Kernmaster trying to get away. In the house off to the side, and Lyric lands the final shot with the Juno. Now they can focus down Cordy Toomer here, and since he's a tank, this is a long, huge stagger placed onto the Rebels, just what the Broncos needed.
Wow, that was a lot of ultimates being brought out, but still not that Death Blossom. But fortunately, Boise State was able to take that for themselves, be able to recapture the control point, but Cordy put up a real good fight there, lasting for a long time, but that doesn't surprise me given how good tanks are at staying alive. That's their job after all.
But I'm a bit nervous here. There's still one good team fight left for UNLV, and that Orbital Ray just coming online for them is such a powerful ultimate. But the Death Blossom takes it out before he can even use it, tearing right through the back line, getting rid of both supports. What a play by Frost. We were waiting like Chekhov's gun to see when that Death Blossom would come out, and it comes out at just the right moment to take one of the most powerful ultimates UNLV could have used off the board.
We see Cordy Toomer putting up, trying to stay alive as long as possible, and unfortunately for him, it seems like the Boise State was able to regroup, and Frost was able to take down Kernmaster right at the end. Currently, they're trickling on, Strider bringing out the cage fight to take down poor Flarp. As we see Boise State, right in the nick of time, was able to take that first control point for themselves.
Nice job for the Broncos winning on Gardens. Now just one more, and they'll have the first round all in the bag.
Seeing that Farah get brought out did not really surprise me. Like we mentioned, right there at the start, there's a lot of open airspace. So having somebody who can just fly around and take shots on the enemy team as they're pushing forward is very helpful, especially with the CC that she has in the bag too. We saw that Farah was being used very well, but Boise State was still able to take this first round. Now we're just going on to the second one and seeing if they're going to be able to manage to take this one as well, or if UNLV will make a slight comeback.
Yeah, this is the lone exception to that general rule of a lot of airspace, and as we move on to Control Center, Strider is going to still stay on the Mauga. And this May, I mean, both teams recognize the importance of it, of getting a good May wall here as the fight takes place in server room. Nice wall to try to get Cordy Toomer all by himself, but the rest of the team comes to back him up, takes out Strider. Lyric taking a bit of damage, and Frost is finding himself split up from his team. He's going to have to Wraith form on out of there as Boise State will strategically retreat to fight another day.
We've seen a lot of good May walls so far. Multiple people on each team being walled off, causing problems. But so far it's worked well for UNLV as they're able to take the first control. Strider getting left. Now he's stuck behind the wall with Cordy Toomer, who's staying alive. They're just blasting each other. Unfortunately, Cordy Toomer goes down.
Boise State, now having taken the Rebels tank off the field, needs to move on to the point, but Kernmaster with the kunai blades is so deadly. Diamond Dog will be able to take out the other support for the Rebels, so all things are even keel. The May Cryo Freeze will only prolong the inevitable as Boise State takes the point back for themselves, UNLV having gotten 26% on it to start out.
That Cryo Freeze is such a good tool, but unfortunately sometimes it just delays your death, as we saw there. It's so good at keeping May alive for just a little bit longer, giving her that extra healing that she needs. But if they're put in a situation like that, it's just, it causes more problems for your team. As we've seen, it splits them up and causes them to have to wait so that we can get back together again.
Or the one thing for UNLV is that it did give them a little bit extra points. So maybe sometimes that's a judgment call you got to make of whether you want to stagger but still get the extra points. And look at that! Without any elimination coming out, UNLV through positioning has taken the point back for themselves. Can Boise State bring it back? They're bringing out the Orbital Ray first. The Cage Fight is used in response, and the Blizzard to freeze Boise State. Frost also hit with the Sleep Dart, and 3 Broncos are frozen. The CC is unbelievable from the Rebels, and they've got this point back for themselves.
They didn't even have to get an elimination there at the start for everything to go in their favor. Of course, it did end up with them using all the ultimates that they had in store, but that worked so well for them. Oh, and we see Hex getting slept from across the map, too. Minutia has been on fire with these sleep darts.
But much like round one, we've seen UNLV use everything, and Frost is hanging on to this Death Blossom. But if Cordy Turmer can just get picks like this, taking out Diamond Dog and Lyric in a great Maywall too to trap Boise State in these narrow hallways, I don't know if the Broncos have enough time to reset. It's do or die right now as Strider brings out the cage fight. It's taken out by Omnifleur. Strider trying to dive into the backline will take out Hertz, but is it enough? Boise State is waiting on their response to come through. That's an ace mice Maywall on to Cordy Turmer. Can't face off against Strider. They'll move, ready to go move into the server room, trying to get that bit of high ground. Cordy Turmer dives into the backline. Boise State not hurting too much on health, but Strider does find himself antied. He does manage to live through it as Frost takes out Cordy Turmer. Very big pick for the Broncos right when they need it. They'll try to take out Kernmaster, and they have to make sure that they have at least one person on this point at all times. Diamond Dog gets rid of Manshua. Hex is eliminated by Hertz. Boise State still trying to hang on with 1-2 person advantage, and now they finally win the team fight after a prolonged time of nail biting. Boise State still alive.
We saw that Death Blossom getting brought out right at the end by Frost. Like you said before, we always just see Frost waiting for the exact right moment. And while it didn't get him any picks himself, it did allow them to take down UNLV, but they're still in a pretty tough spot at 99%.
Boise State does have that all-crucial orbital ray available. Diamond Dog gets hit with the biotic grenade, will survive through it. UNLV ready to move on to point. Kitsune Rush and Orbital Ray. That is one juiced up Boise State team, but you know who's more juiced up? This nano-boosted Mauga, who with the help of Omnifleur on the Death Blossom completely wipes out the Broncos and takes the point back. The rivalry is still alive and well, and UNLV takes Control Center.
You know, we usually talk about like using all your ultimates at good timings, making sure you don't use them all at the same time, but sometimes if you know what you're doing, you know that using all 5 of them at the exact same time works pretty well. We saw UNLV was able to do that in that last fight because they knew they just needed to recapture that point.
So, I mean, sometimes this is a duality of Overwatch. Sometimes you get those great flanks from the side which you're not expecting, and sometimes it's a hallway game. Both teams fight in the hallway for a prolonged amount of time until one team, through being more accurate and charging their ultimates up faster, finally just builds up all 5 ultimates to avalanche over the other team and take the point.
I could not tell what was going on there with how many ultimates being brought out, even with Strider's cage fight as well. It was just so much chaos. But unfortunately, most of that chaos was directed towards Boise State.
Now moving on to Night Market, a bit more open airspace, and Frost looks to take advantage of that by swapping on over to the Echo. But Diamond Dog is the first pick from Kernmaster. These kunai blades have been a consistent problem for Boise State. Can they win this fight? Now 1 down. Biotic grenade thrown on to Hex, and now with that support gone, Boise State really hurting and taking the point first. UNLV looking like they're going to take the first fight and the point to boot.
See Strider trying to retreat so that way they can recoup with the rest of their team. Though UNLV did take this first one for themselves, we saw like in that first round that they were able to take it back in the last moment. So we know that Boise State still has a lot of time to work with, and as long as they play their cards right, they can win this third round.
Deep into enemy territory, you see Omnifleur. I mean, I wouldn't expect a Reaper to go up against an Echo, but had Frost down to low enough health that he still had to retreat. Diamond Dog hit with the Sleep Dart. Kernmaster eliminated by Hex. This is the first break. Boise State can find themselves. Frost lands onto Manshua. Both supports down for the Rebels, and Boise State goes charging onto the point as Frost tries to take out this last remaining Omnifleur. Said, remember me, you were trying to take me down. Gets the final hit, and Boise State has won this team fight, gotten a stagger onto this mate of boot, and taken the point. Although I think in that scenario, May was just trying to stall this out to keep it going, and hey, it was long enough for Cordy Turmer to get back on the point, so this is even more charge for UNLV. They're going to get 50% and counting.
Wow, that was a lot of charge being brought up there at the end. I guess that kind of does prove your point going against my point from earlier. sometimes it just depends on if you know how well you're able to use that that cryo freeze, and we saw it being used to stall right there. Worked very well.
UNLV starts things out with Kasune Rush, as does Boise State. Strider hit with a bionic grenade, brings out the cage fight as the nano boost is brought out onto the Kiriko. Those are going to have to be some deadly accurate kunai blades, and it just doesn't pan out. Boise State team wipes UNLV and is now on their way to tying this back up.
I mean, to be fair, Kernmaster has got a lot of good eliminations with the by themselves, so it doesn't really surprise me to see it being brought out onto him.
Hertz brings out the Blizzard, and we have a duplicate onto Frost, so we got 2 Magas down for Boise State, and a cage fight ready to be brought out. This is just going to be a no-go zone completely, with 2 Magas ready to trap you. And yeah, he just realized there was no chance for him there. The only thing was just accept this fate.
It was a split second of watching, but in that moment, I could see every emotion going through poor Kern's mind as that cage fight got brought out by Frost.
He knew he was going for an Emmy, and yet would never get one. Meanwhile, Corey Toomer now has a difficult position of trying to retake this point before Boise State crosses that 80% mark. UNLV sitting on just 1, maybe 2 team fights, although time's running out very fast for that to be an option. Strider moving on out to the side, trying to make sure he doesn't take too much damage. What's really interesting about this fight is both teams don't really have an ultimate on deck. The closest is Kernmaster I can see. That's a huge bionic grenade onto both Boise State's DPSs, but they managed to survive through it. Corey Toomer taking a good bit of damage on the Flarp as well, as Boise State tries to find someone. Frost trying to go in, secure the eliminations with the focusing beam, and it's going to pay in spades. Manchua, QWERTY Toomer, and Hertz all fall, and Boise State has got Night Market and Lijiang Tower as a whole.
This is a back-to-back-to-back-to-back team kills. Boise State, after that second round, said, no way, you are not taking this first game. And they really stepped it up right there. Of course, like, things went well for UNLV, but they just took it all back right there in that third round.
But QWERTY Toomer is going to be honored with the play of the game. Just to know that UNLV is still quite the formidable foe to go up against. Surprising Boise State on Control Center, getting a good amount of team wipes themselves, and forcing it to go all the way to Night Market. So that's exactly the kind of first match I was hoping for, with these 2 teams being the rivals they are.
I can't imagine what's going to be happening in these next rounds, especially because I do not foresee a sweep happening with this one. We've seen it a lot before in earlier games, but with how well both teams are playing here, I can imagine it's going to be a lot of back and forth, constantly going at each other. Because frankly, in the first half of that third round, it was looking very good for UNLV, but it just immediately went back to Boise State. So it's going to be a lot of back and forth for these next games.
Well, recently, Boise State between UNLV has been a lot of sweeps. It's been a little bit of a while since I have seen UNLV look as good as we saw them in the first stage on Control. So this is really exciting, almost kind of a blast from the past of just these 2 teams of when they were just equally matching each other, fighting so intensely. The very first championship in the Mountain West that Boise State took went all 5 games to the very third and final stage on Control Center to a 99% overtime, to give you an idea of how evenly matched Boise State and UNLV were a few years ago when Boise State took their first stage.
Well, I can imagine this is a real good time for our old player to show up then, because if UNLV is able to step up their game way more than they have in recent times, then well, this is a great time to show up.
My goodness, as if we aren't having enough flashbacks with this UNLV match. We are going to Hollywood. I have not seen this stage in a good number of years. I'm so thrilled to see it. I suppose we're going without the Halloween stages. I greatly approve. I have missed Hollywood for quite a long time.
It honestly hasn't been something I have seen at all this season, so I do have to say I love this map, and I've always loved this map, so it's been sad that I haven't seen it yet, but I'm glad it's here now, and I'm also glad to see we're going back to that Wrecking Ball on Strider. Nothing wrong with how he was playing Malga, of course, because it still went very well, but it's always just so much fun to watch Strider playing as this Wrecking Ball.
We also got a torp being brought out, just a little bit of aerial turret support for Boise State. And off we go. UNLV looking to come out of the theater. Hex already peppering a bit of damage onto them. It's Boise State. Here is Frost on this Ash. We know it's a deadly hero that he can play. Lyric already landing the eliminations onto Hertz and Kernmaster. A great start for Boise State. Omniflarp did the thing Ventures do and flank into the backline, but only managed to get one of Boise State's supports. As soon as Strider turns around and focuses down this Venture, it's game over.
Oof, man, UNLV had a tough time getting out there at the start. Cordy Toomer's been able to stay alive and keep pushing forward even then. But they're just still able to keep them pushed back in this archway right here. There's a lot of points that are pretty difficult to get through. And it seems like this is going to be one of them for Boise State. Or excuse me, not Boise State, UNLV, because they're still struggling to get onto that control point.
Shua brings out the deflect. Diamond Dog's turret will be eliminated. As of right now, still long range fighting. Its Venture is looking for their next target. Omniflarp moving into Lyric. He gets hit with the biotic grenade, however, and with some help from Frost, a final melee to finish Omniflarp off. That is the one risk of just trying to focus down that Ana. She can hit you with the grenade, and if she calls it out to her team, you are dead meat. Boise State does a great job taking out Kernmaster and Mantua, further solidifying their defense of the first point.
And we see Cordy Toomer going down for the first time. They still have not been able to get any percentage on this first control point. They still have 2.5 minutes left on the clock, so they still got plenty of team fights to go here. But unfortunately for them, Strider already has that minefield, and he's great at placing those in perfect positions.
You know, the minefield is more for, has been in history a lot more for zoning and not really an elimination machine, but Strider just finds a way to make it work every single time, even without it, like we saw right there. He was able to take out Kernmaster. He's just so reliably lands those headshots. Unbelievable work from Strider as Boise State holds yet again.
It is interesting to see those pedal platforms being brought out, so it adds a lot more high ground to Hollywood, which already has a decent amount around this central control point here. But it still adds a lot more chaos for each team.
This is one split-up team. UNLV, Cordy Toomer, and Omniflarp have gone all in on this dive into the back line. They have managed to take out Lyric. Now the team's going to join up again with the Tree of Life on the point. This is the biggest chance for UNLV. Taking out Diamond Dog's turret. Cordy Toomer ready to move in with the Meteor Strike as well. Boise State has brought out Bob, and Bob's going to have to do the best for Frost, who fell shortly after he used him. UNLV still hasn't gotten a tick, but it's now brought out the Deadeye. Will that crucially get anyone? We have got a Molten Core as well as a Meteor Strike. Just about every ultimate being thrown as Cordy Toomer picks off Lyric again. He has just had a rough time being eliminated as soon as he respawns. Diamond Dog also taken out by Cordy Toomer. It's a scrappy fight till the very end. Boise State now ready to move on with their Tree of Life and a minefield as well. Boise State eventually hangs in there long enough to stop UNLV in their tracks at what was probably their best chance to get the point.
And we see Strider going into the back line right now, making sure he can pick off the rest of the team so that way they can't get back in there. They only have 35 seconds left on the clock, only one more team fight left. But Strider is just keeping them back, not giving them a chance to get anywhere near that point. You see, he was forced to move back, but he still has that minefield he can use. And that'll cause a lot of problems.
Drops it in the chalk point, and already Omniflarp falls. They have to use their Baptiste Immortality Field, but that is gone and out for the count. The rest are trying to retrieve this Life Weaver. Really tough position. Hertz is just now, all the team is split up kind of into one all across the field. Don't really have that much of a chance of taking this point by themselves. Mantua now has to try to get a last-ditch attempt, a last-minute touch to keep it going, but Diamond Dog has his number. She manages to find the elimination, finds a double, even more than that, thanks to the turret, and Boise State ends Hollywood at a full hold. So, the one stage that I haven't seen in years, that I was very excited on seeing again, in the very snazzy Halloween skin, no less, I only get to see 1/3 of.
Well, you gotta take what you can get, right? Like, we got the decorations, we got the new map. Yeah, we can't see the rest of it, but we can envision it in our hearts and pretend, wow, I'd love the rest of this map where we see the point get pushed. And hey, You can see it in the free cam sometimes.
We can envision the rest of the map in our hearts. What sort of discount fortune cookie did you pull that out
I'm
of?
trying to make it feel
I'm
better.
still angry here. This is Halloween Hollywood, and I am only seeing a third of it. Well, at least the Broncos are still winning. That's the main thing at the end of the night. All they have to do is make their way onto the first point, get one single tick, they will have it.
I'm just happy to see this rivalry being played out, because knowing their history, it's a lot of fun to see them go at each other's throats like this. But Boise State is really causing a lot of problems for them, but maybe UNLV will have their own defense that makes it so Boise State cannot even get close to that point. It'll be very, very difficult. But hey, we still got multiple minutes to go through to see how that pans out.
UNLV definitely seemed to be of the strategy that they wanted to get in that backline and pick off the supports at any cost, even if it meant splitting up their team and leaving their remaining DPS and supports vulnerable.
Hey, you want to know something that'll make you feel happy? We're seeing a Roadhog being brought up by Cordy.
Okay, you know, that's one thing, but if I don't see any hooks landed with it, then really what's the point?
Well, we got at least 4 minutes to work with here, so I imagine you'll still have time. That was a great jump from Strider right there, getting it right in the back line.
Strider already picking up Mantua, just going charging on into these close quarters. QWERTY Tumor falls, and I stand by what I said there.
Yeah, well, hey, it's not been taken just yet, but we do see Omniflarp and Hertz being taken down, so they're in a pretty tough spot. Kernmaster following right afterwards, and well,
yeah.
It seems we'll never see that gate get to be opened, at least not tonight.
You know, a Roadhog that can't, bringing out the Roadhog only for the hooks not to land, you know, it's just about as effective as a mint-flavored suppository. I mean, it's a nice thought, but at the end of the day, what's the point?
Well, we see this play of the game going to Diamond Dog, who is just kind of was running around a lot, but that turret kept the pressure high on UNLV. You see a lot of eliminations being thrown back and forth, especially during that clip.
Yeah, and it was a very crucial at the very last minute, too, because Mantua was trying to get in there just to stall it out. And, you know, you never know what can happen. You got to keep the fight going by any means. But Diamond Dog was right there at a sentry, just ready to take him out.
Well, I did see the overtime did get reset, so Minutia was in the very, very, split second there on the point. They were able to reset it. But unfortunately, the only person left there was Kernmaster, who got thrown around by Strider. So even then, it didn't really matter for them. But it still does go to show that having that turret there proved to be very helpful for Boise State. So even though we don't see a Torbjorn very often, doesn't mean that he's not a good character to play as.
At least it wasn't King's Row, is all I can say. I will agree with you there. I guess I'm happy that I saw.
You don't have to be happy. You can just be slightly appreciative. We'll go with that.
More slightly peeved, but anyway. Any whom, we move on to the next stage, which, depending on which tournament you're in or depending on how you want to structure your matches, we see usually either as Flashpoint or Push. Flashpoint, of course, being the one that doesn't lend itself to as much variety as Push temporarily has, although it's probably also determined in a way that we're just going to see whatever else can be themed to Halloween as well.
Well, I mean, personally, as long as there are at least a few pumpkins here and there, even if it's just the character skins, then I'll be happy. But I'll be even more happy if we see a lot more chaos being brought out in these next few rounds. I don't know if it'll be Push. I don't know if it'll be anything else. It might even end up being Escort for some strange reason. But regardless, like I said before, it's just a lot of exciting rivalry happening, even if it's not an official PEC match like we would normally see.
Well, no, it is. It is. It's just UNLV is a very special guest here at PEC. It's just a non-conference match. This still counts. It goes in the record books.
It was not one of the registered teams in the initial PEC. But
all right, so we're ready to move on through with Eichenwald. See, I called it. We're going to have 2 hybrid maps in a row because Eichenwald can be themed to Halloween. I'm happy with this.
And it is just such a nice map to look at. It's a ginormous castle, all of this old ancient architecture. It's just such a great thing to look at, especially in this Halloween theming.
The traditional site also of Junkenstein's Revenge. Ooh, that is so thematic. That is a shot for that's a real peach right there.
Yeah, sometimes these pre-match free cams really get very good views of these maps, and Well, especially with the theming we've got here, it already would be a nice looking map, but the way that, I gotta give it to Blizzard, they really pulled off the looks from this one, especially during the Halloween season.
Yep, you always gotta love those special holiday-themed skins, as we are ready to jump in and see Boise State can get the match point, get it 3-0, and wrap up this PEC match against UNLV.
Speaking of Junkenstein, we see a Junkrat being brought out, so even more added to the theming. Even if the skin isn't included, it still goes to add to the rest of the.
Of course, it's not included. We're not running a charity here.
I suppose not.
Everything's sold separately.
You think we'll see a Mariah Carey skin being brought out in November?
Oh, that would be. You know what? Whatever is effective. She's already claimed so much territory in retail. I could see her taking a few points herself. Meanwhile, let's go into the actual matches. QWERTY Tumor is ready to play using the Uprising skin instead of the Junkenstein skin, so not completely thematic. But as of right now, UNLV attacking first. Omniflark gets the first pick onto Lyric. Biotic shot onto Strider, and they almost get their target, but he still manages to survive.
Having Hex there with that Life Weaver is getting him, he just barely was able to escape with his life. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said about Hex. And the rest of the team does seem to be going down as we see Strider just doing his best to escape, but there's so much damage being brought out and is taken down by Kern. Unfortunately for them, it seems like this first, that UNLV is able to take this very, very quickly. And it is also interesting, we saw QWERTY was originally being the tank for UNLV, but we see Hearts instead of taking that that position. So it is nice to see a bit of a switch up between the team dynamics.
Lyric gets a nice early pick onto Omniflark. Hurts hurting a bit for health, almost taken out of their mech, but manages to heal back up. But QWERTY Tumor can't say the same. Strider does a really good job of taking out these low health heroes on the Wrecking Ball, and one shot in the air for Frost as well. Very accurate onto Kernmaster.
Boise State might have struggled there at the very start, but they're able to retake this one for themselves. Of course, Hurts, or not retake it, they're able to stall the payload, which of course is very, very important because they got to make sure that UNLV does not get anywhere closer to that end point, because that's just a little bit further that they have to go once it switches to them being the attackers.
Lyric gets the first pick of the fight onto Mantua. QWERTY Tumor follows soon afterwards. Diamond Dog is eliminated, but Boise State's still up one, although a double from Hurts, and Omniflark now flips the fight over into the Rebels' favor. They reclaim the payload. Lyric and Strider will do their best to try to stall out. In the meantime, Strider makes their way onto the point, at least contested, tries to get back to his team, but can't make it, and UNLV will now make forward progress.
I think Hearts is doing a great job at combating Strider's mobility, because we know that Strider plays Wrecking Ball very well with his ability to escape. But these, the fact that if he can just fly after him, those traps from Junkrat, so much of these things are just causing him a lot of problems. Not to discount his abilities, but it's just making it difficult for him.
Doesn't find anyone with that Deadeye. And Hurts gets pick on the Diamond Dog. Things always get interesting over this bridge. It can be an environmental magnet. Hurts is just bringing the pain onto Boise State. We also got the Riptire as well, taking out Frost. And UNLV has made their way to the checkpoint.
Boise State is in a pretty tough spot. There's still 5 minutes left. Oh, poor Strider gets taken down by that grenade. They still have a lot of, there's still a lot of time that they need to defend. This is a massacre right now.
It is. The QWERTY Tumor is just, now that he's inside this enclosed space here in the castle, he can have the time of his life now on Junkrat. He's already been picking up eliminations, but now that he's got this, he can just hold these doorways. Boise State now struggling in this defense.
See Strider switching over to Sigma as maybe a last-ditch effort to go up against UNLV's constant pushing of the payload.
Well, being able to place those shields where he wants to, can shield himself from wherever he designates Junkrat to be. And look at this pushback here by Boise State, all the way back onto the bridge, but Diamond Dog falls. Hex is next, taken out by the self-destruct. Boise State, having lost two, is trying to get away. Strider eliminated, and it's a fight win for UNLV. And this is going to come down to the wire. UNLV is going to try to hold Boise State before they can respawn and get onto their point. It's hard to claim these final few meters because that respawn is so close. UNLV is going to have to trying to see where Strider is going to come out. Frost brings out Bob that they can put onto the point to contest at less than a meter now. Boise State also has their Reptile. Diamond Dog going to look for a good target, try to go into the back line. She has the side on Anna and lands it. And Boise State is just barely holding on by the skin of their teeth. These take out the Baby Diva. They'll be able to do that as well. And Boise State, with just 1 meter remaining, manages to hold UNLV.
How did they manage to pull that off? That just shows how good Boise State is, even in those last moments.
Well, I got your answer right here. They spent 4 ultimates.
Well,
that's a good way to start right there.
I suppose so, but I still got to credit their ability.
They pressed the win button 4 times, and they did the special move. But UNLV, I mean, they also got to be happy that they got so much time left and burned all of Boise State's ultimate. The only thing that's going to be left soon is that sound barrier, which can be useful should UNLV bring an ultimate, but a dry team fight or a team fight where UNLV has an ultimate advantage, I would say that's just what they want. And they're going to be using the first one right now, as well as the Deadeye, ready to bring out that Riptire, find the target onto Diamond Dog, and Strider falls to the Deadeye as well. This looks like it is going to be the final defensive hold for Boise State, or the final defensive fail, I should say. The last stand, Custer's last stand. I don't know what I'm saying, but the UNLV Rebels have the point, and all 3 possible that they could get on attack.
This is just like the last round when Boise State, they managed to make a massive change, and they managed to push real hard. Now UNLV is taking that stance for themselves. It's just constantly back and forth. Now, while they did get all the way to the end, there is still a chance that Boise State can make it. But even if they do, UNLV still has over 2.5 minutes to just touch like the control point there. Or they just have to, excuse me, I'm talking gibberish just like you were. We gotta reset here.
So Custer's last stand.
Yeah, let's have a little bit of a history lesson. You know, I'm sure that's what the people are here for.
I mean, you know, Boise State's defensive hold there was as disastrous as it, so it's an apt comparison.
I think I'm more so just surprised to be seeing Escort being brought out of all things.
I mean,
I was just saying right before, we barely ever see Escort due to it usually being at the end, and would you look at that?
Well, hybrid, it is technically hybrid, which mix of control and it's in the name hybrid. It's just, it's Halloween time, and we're going to be fighting on whatever spooky maps are available.
Well, I hope we see that going on forward, because this isn't going to be the last round with how things have gone so far.
We could actually have a chance of this going on into overtime, this being an extra long hybrid stage. We'll just have to see what the Broncos bring to the table. They're ready, Frost ready to take to the skies, fly like a bat, and rain hellfire down on the enemy team. See, I can get in the Halloween mood as well. Strider, though, is just going to do what he does best, just try to slam into the back line and take out that Cassidy. Birdie Turmer, though, holding things down as Strider goes swinging around the point. Has the Anna in an enclosed space, and the Life Rip is going to bail that Anna out. UNLV holding so far, but they lose Birdie Tumor. That could be the first of many. In fact, it is, with Omniflarp holding on for dear life for health. He might not be long for this world, but UNLV has managed to save back up. But Boise State has positioned themselves on the tank to take the first 2 ticks. Will they be able to get that final tick? The answer is indeed yes.
Both teams have managed to take it pretty fast, but it seems Boise State was able to take it faster. They're able to continue pushing UNLV back. Strider getting right back there, taking down Minutia. Well, that credit goes to Lyric, but most of that damage was brought out there. Diamond Dog able to take down Cordy Tumor, though he did go down himself due to hearts. They're able to continue keeping that pressure high and pushing UNLV back, doing what they do best.
Bird's trying to claim this high ground away from Boise State, but Frost is doing a good job putting enough damage onto him that he can't stay up there for too long. Strider now looking to see where his next target is, especially now that the minefield has come online. He slams on down, strews the rooftops with minefields. And Lyric is the only elimination, however. Sadly, that fight not going how Strider wanted to set it up. Cordy Toomer also getting to pick on to Frost. Diamond Dogs next. Hex eliminated. And Boise State is going to have to be sent back to start, but Strider still at full health.
Well, we see him still continuing to stay in that general area rather than retreating to their team. So it isn't interesting to see, rather than retreating so that way the rest of the team can get back together and group up.
Risk of that is that if they're able to hold Strider in the back line, he can't regroup to Boise State, who will have no front line all of a sudden. So it's a bit of a risky play, but he's mobile enough that I think he can do it. Cordy Toomer finds the pick onto Diamond Dog with the mine. Strider finds himself up in on the rooftops, separated from the Broncos. Is still managing to survive, but this Junkrat, every time one of those bombs hits, it's a huge chunk of health taken away from Strider. This Boise State really struggling to push forward now.
Yeah, and currently, while they are building up the ultimates, UNLV does have the advantage. Speaking of, 2 of them being brought out. 3.
Oh my goodness! Wow! What a riptire right in the face of the orbital ray.
It could not save them from that giant bomb being thrown directly at them. Cordy Toomer switching over to Junkrat has been a real thorn in Boise State's side.
You know, Junkrat has enough trouble against airbound heroes as it is. You think a spacebound hero, something up in the air as much as an orbital ray would be enough to stop. Nah. I just dropped the boom boom tire right in their faces and it still does damage.
Well, you can't always be up in the sky, unfortunately. I'm sure that would be a lovely, lovely thing for all those Juno lovers out there. But there is a little thing called balance in our fun little shooter games that we got to get.
I'm sorry, as someone who lived through the GOATS era, that was hilarious to hear. But as Boise State is taking this fight, they have gotten 2 more picks for themselves, now make it 3. Omniflarp is taken out as the 3rd. Cordy Toomer and Hertz going to retreat strategically, trying to get 1 more team fight. The possibility that they still might hold Boise State before the checkpoint.
Yeah, they are getting to about less time than UNLV has, but getting that checkpoint will increase that time by just a little bit, so they're not in the dark. They're not at a loss just yet. We see Diamond Dog taking a lot of damage. Unfortunately, gets taken down by Hertz.
Strider trying to knock this Life Weaver off of the high ground. Now using the high ground for his own advantage. Slams on down. Boise State already found themselves down 1, but the fight's gone on long enough. They will able to respawn, although that's a dangerous sleep dart pushed onto Frost. He takes a good bit of damage down to below half health, and Hex faces a concussive mine to the wrong end of his face. So now UNLV down 1. UNLV having a very strong defense. A nano boost also onto Hertz, but there goes the tire into Current Master, and Omniflarp eliminated. Cordy Toomer is next, and what looked like to be a good fight start for UNLV has turned around. Boise State secures the checkpoint.
And there they go. They still have a lot of time to work with. 3 minutes on the clock. We'll see if they're able to push forward as efficiently as UNLV was in the first half. Currently, we see Hex waiting patiently on the point with that shield raised, just in case any random grenades or other projectiles go flying towards him.
Strider gets a melee onto Cordy Toomer. It's the name of the game. These early picks to start the team off at 4v5 have been keys to victory. A nice minefield drop down onto the final parking spot. Strider's trying to find someone in the back line, but Boise State also uses the orbital ray. Talking about a flank, look out for Omniflarp on the side. He'll have his Deadeye run out. Now he's just trying to find it through good old-fashioned shots. Managed to land a few against Frost. But Strider, meanwhile, has taken out Manshua and Omniflarp. The team is melting around UNLV. They throw out a self-destruct in a desperate attempt to keep the Broncos at bay, and they do manage to pick up 2. So Boise State, despite a lot of ultimates spent, not too much forward progress.
And losing both of your supports is going to make things especially difficult. Strider's doing a great job at staying alive, but that's especially boosted by having multiple people to keep you alive with all that constant healing. So we saw it force them to go back for just a moment, but even then, Strider moves back in there to run into them once again.
Cordy Toomer hanging on to, oh my goodness, that is such a nasty mine. He has been so deadly after, and watch where you step, Strider. Oh, he cannot move a single inch when he is caught in that mine. Boise State, though, with the rally, Hex having to become the tank in lieu of Strider. Due to that mine, they do manage to get it a little bit ways forward, but they're already behind UNLV for overtime, and now the Rebels are on the counterattack. Omniflarp moves in, takes out Diamond Dog. Dog. Strider trying to move into the back line, take out Omniflar, but is now getting focused down himself. Moves back to pick up a health pack and try to regroup with his team. Frost now has the barrage online. His Lyric is eliminated online. Orbital Ray to start things out, and Frost eliminated. Oh, looks like he actually fell off the edge himself, and Strider does manage to bring things back, though, with a killer minefield. They also managed to get rid of 40 Tumor's Riptire with the Brig. That is deadly accurate aiming for Boise State. Last ditch self-destruct does manage to get Diamond Dog, but Boise State is staying in the fray. They get the minefield elimination onto Mantua. Omniflar falls, and Boise State will at least go to overtime.
Well, here we
Keep
go.
their hopes alive.
The most stressful part of the matches, especially for Hybrid. They just got to touch that point and it goes to them. But that's going to be very hard. Or if they had ran out of time.
If they had ran out of time, but they are allowed the 1 minute house minimum here.
Yes, but even then, it's still a lot of ground they got to make versus that 3.5 minutes that UNLV has. So that makes things very difficult for Boise State. But I've seen bigger comebacks from them. So I'm pretty excited to see how this one goes.
Well, with UNLV having the greater amount of time, excuse me, that means they'll have the luxury of going last to see what they have to beat.
We get a nice view here of the hallway, something that we might not even end up seeing here in the overtime. But it depends on how things go for either team. Well, so we'll just have to see if Boise State, even given the 2.5 minute deficit, is able to take this round for themselves. But if not, well, we got to see if they can manage to take the 4th round.
Oh, I just heard Doc incentivize the team with more Big Macs.
I did hear that too. I didn't want to say anything because maybe this is supposed to be a secret. Maybe it's our team's secret.
I just don't know, you know. I mean, it is an incentive, sure, but we're trying to raise Boise State's chances of winning here, not their cholesterol.
Well, maybe the raised cholesterol is what they need to win.
You know what? I do not feel medically qualified to say anything further, so I'm just going to get to the actual fight as Strider ready to move on in. But Boise State has already burned off half their time. They got to take this payload for themselves and then stick to it for dear life. Trying to move on to the Life Weaver, but Diamond Dog eliminated by Hertz due to the melee. Hex also hurting for health, cannot get out of there, and Boise State is being reset with only 20 seconds left, but Frost is trying to keep things.
The mech, Baby Diva, still alive, but gets taken down by Frost right after. In the middle of overtime, Boise State was able to take this one back.
All right, so they got the payload for themselves. They got 4 points. They have no time left, so they got to stick to that payload like glue.
And
the thing is, the farther along this goes on, the faster that overtime timer is going to tick down should one of them leave the payload. So one mistake will prove fatal.
And if things go wrong for for Hex, who was on the point, it could prove to be disastrous. But we see them all getting back to the point.
Oh, they're just going to try to zone this out with the self-destruct, but Strider hangs behind the payload, realizes the win condition, and keeps Boise State's chances alive, although he's really low for health right now. This has to be the old
Oh, and the trap!
And not with the trap. UNLV holds Boise State.
He's flying around the payload, making sure he can keep contesting it as long as possible. Oh, but man, QWERTY has been especially ruthless with those trap placements and those mines. Maybe switching over to Junkrat is exactly what UNLV needed to be able to win this game. But they still have to be able to using this quite large amount of time, if I may, being able to get the payload all the way there. We got to see if they're able to make it happen for themselves, or if Boise State is able to continue to keep them off the point as long as possible.
Yeah, they definitely got a good number of team fights to use here.
Yeah, 3.5 minutes is quite a lot of time, so I imagine they're going to put up quite a bit of a fight. And considering how things went the first round, Boise State is in a pretty tough spot. Got a nice view of the castle right before we get started, except we won't even be seeing that unless the team decides to go all the way back there, most likely from Strider, who likes to
okay, no, don't even try to compare this to Hollywood. We got to see the castle twice here. I am more than happy on seeing this much back and forth.
Well, you got to know when to be positive and when to be negative. Not that I'm being negative, of course. I'm just thinking they only have a little ways to go before this one goes in UNLV's favor.
5, 4,
UNLV has a whole lot of time and a whole bunch of opportunities to try. Cordy Toomer still sticking on this Junkrat, which has been such a deadly force. Trying to move forward with those 2 mines, immediately place some damage onto the Pharah. That's going to be a really tough task for a Junkrat to do. Meanwhile, he's just going to wait for the rest of the team to join him so UNLV can start the team fight proper.
See, Strider's able to build up a lot of ultimate percentage by flanking them, getting behind them. Pressure's kept high on him, and he's able to retreat once again and stay alive. Though Diamond Dog is struggling to do the same without damage being brought down from above by the Lifeweaver.
Omniflarp trying to take out Frost in a Pharah duel. One has hit Frost, but Frost manages to take out Manchua. Cordy Toomer also eliminated. Hertz and Omniflarp are fighting back, however. Lyric with Pulsar Cannons takes out Omniflarp, and this will be a reset for the Rebels. Remember, if Boise State manages to hold UNLV here in overtime, they will win the match.
Yeah, they have 2.5 minutes. UNLV took a long time in that first team fight, but it did lose, and they had lost a little over a third of the time that they have here to work with. Currently, Boise State is doing a better job about getting the ultimates built up, or as you like to put it, the win buttons. So I imagine that Boise State will be bringing out some here soon, especially with that minefield directly onto the control point.
Those will wear off soon enough, and UNLV might just have to reset again. They've got Cordy Toomer separated from their team, so that'll get them nowhere pretty fast.
See, Minutia is able to get that Tree of Life for UNLV, which could be very helpful for them in an upcoming team fight. But Strider has that minefield, so it could be a direct counter, just too much damage for them to be able to handle. We'll just have to see what happens, especially with Frost being able to get that barrage. You see Cordy Toomer firing some desperate frags just to see if he can get any damage at all. But he's not able to find much.
Strider just right now being an aerial decoy, a lightning rod for damage. Dives right into Cordy Toomer, but the Tree of Life will bail Cordy Toomer out. But Frost comes in with the barrage for the double. Manchua and Kernmaster are gone. And crucially, those are the 2 supports, so there is no more healing for UNLV.
But the trap. Oh, Strider got taken down by the self-destruct because he got trapped and right at the last second was not able to escape. They might be down a tank, but Hertz the only one left alive for UNLV. They're able to make a good escape, especially with the help from that Lifeweaver. Oh, but they only have a minute left. Boise State is putting up a very good fight, and they now have a rally and a minefield here to work with, and almost a Riptire as well. I imagine a lot of ultimates will be getting brought out here at the end. Oh, speaking of
wow,
Dog, and it's right in that corner.
Omniflarp also falling. Manchua and Hertz are next on the list, and Boise State. This is going to be the final fight, and very crucially, Boise State has an ultimate lead.
Yeah, they were able to use that barrage to take down Diamond Dog, but even then, Boise State was able to still win the team fight. So UNLV has to pull something together here real fast. They have that Riptire, which could deal some damage, but even then, it seems unlikely.
Ready to move through with the Riptire. UNLV all.
What a shot there!
Right out of the air lands the shot from the Pharah onto the Riptire, as if Pharah and Junkrat are not already mortal enemies. Frost just puts an exclamation point on that rivalry, just like the rivalry between UNLV and Boise State has been decided tonight firmly in the Broncos' favor.
That rocket came out of nowhere. I was not ready for that at all. Boise State was able to take that. They only had a minute, and they pushed it quite far forward and able to go up against that 3.5-minute advantage. They're able to take the game for themselves, but we do see Hertz getting the play of the game, well deserved. Both Hertz and Cordy put up they did very well in this game. Wow, I'm still baffled by how that last 30 seconds went.
Yeah, that was quite a turn of events at the very end there, but oh, Nelly, was that a fun shot? Was that a really fun match to watch? I'm happy for the night. That was really fun.
And we've still got more. We still got more action to come. This rivalry has been proving to be exactly what we expected, with both teams going up against each other and UNLV able to prove themselves like they were at the very start. in that very first matchup that we saw way back when.
But with a fight, with a match as great as that, there have to be some highlights, some top 5 plays to see, and I'm ready to see them right now. And don't go away because, as I said, we got Rocket League, then Overwatch, then Smash Bros. So we'll see if the Boise State Broncos can get 3 wins tonight and end the night on a positive note. But for now, enjoy your top 5 plays of the game.
Idaho Central Credit Union, looking after your daily balance.
Dave, it's your Idaho Central app. I know this car got you through college, but check this out. In my credit, your credit score looks good. And there's a great rate on this auto loan so we can score a roomier ride. Whoa, who's driving this thing? The closest Idaho Central Credit Union branch is in your pocket.
Growing up in Riggins, we have certain rules we live by. Look both ways before crossing the street. Fishing stories get better the more you tell them. Small town life makes your life anything but small. Never work alone when you go hunting. And always buckle up. Seatbelts save lives. That's a rule we can all live by.